If there is a chance the 76ers trade Paul George, who would be a good trade partner? We'll break that down right here on Locked On 76ers and the off-season talks and so much more.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your host, Keith Pompey, 76ers beat writer. I'm Kayla Santiago, sideline reporter for the Delaware Blue Coats, the 76ers NBA G League affiliate. And your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On 76ers daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with all new free Locked On 76ers newsletter. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So the team, Daryl Morey, everything in between, already came out and said they're looking to essentially bring in this big three coming into next season. But Keith, if there was a chance to have a trade partner, to look at contracts spaced next to each other, to look at the future of 76ers, Zion Williamson is really intriguing to me. If the 76ers had a thought of trading Paul George, I believe we're both in agreement that PG is staying with the 76ers, but is that a trade partner that entices you? Is there anybody out there that you think the 76ers could get in release of Paul George with that hefty contract?
You know, it's weird. I'm not really thinking about, I mean, I know that sounds crazy. I know the subject is, but I just feel like it's not going to happen. Right. Just because I don't think that there's a lot of interest in him. But Zion, I hate to say it, no, it doesn't interest me. And here's the reason why. You know, Zion played well towards the end of this year, but there's a lot of red flags there right now. Like in regards to, you know, the off the court situations, in regards to his commitment to basketball. Now I get it. Now he looked great towards the end of the season, but there was a time where, you know, he would balloon up, he wouldn't play, he had injuries, he had a lot of other things. And I just don't, if I'm the 76ers, on paper, he's a great addition. But at the same time, I don't know if I'm willing to take that on. Now, again, his money is non-guaranteed. And he's going to make like $42 million next year. Mm-hmm. He's going to make $39.4 million next year, 42.1 the season after that, and then 44.8 in 27-28. So when we talk about next year, he's making 39.4, where Paul George is going to make 51.6. So the hard part is, in order for a team, talking about New Orleans, to get Paul George, they're going to have to give up Zion and another player, right? And I don't know if you're New Orleans that you want to do that, right? But at the same time, I just get a little nervous with him. Like, you remember, like last year, he had the ex-girlfriend going at him on Facebook or Twitter and all that other stuff. To me, it just seems like a circus waiting to happen.
You know, it's interesting because I bring up this topic because I know there's a lot of people out there that are frustrated with Paul George and the lack of production a season ago, the injuries going into this year. I don't think that Zion Williamson is a good fit for Philadelphia unless you were planning on looking at going away from Joel Embiid. The spacing just doesn't make too much sense to me. Now, let me flip this over to a Tyrese Maxey Williamson duo here, Keith. You look at somebody like Williamson that if Joel Embiid wasn't the star on this team, wasn't dominating, could take up some space down low. Do you feel that could be a duo in the future? I don't think so. Clearly the Sixers aren't going to go away from Joel Embiid, but at the same time, it is interesting when you're kind of looking around the league and comparing those contracts from a sense of, okay, if Joel comes back, if he's not dominant, what do you do from there? In the sense, could there be another essentially big out there that could pair up well with Tyrese Maxey in the future.
I mean, I think there's a couple of them, right? I mean, like, look, but at the same time, I think right now the problem that the 76ers are going to fall into is that I think it's hard to move Paul George right now. All it takes is one guy. So we're talking about moving him for another elite player. And you do have to get somebody that has a lot of money on their contract. But I don't know if I'm New Orleans or anyone else that I want to take on Paul George. So that's the problem. Like, let's say, okay, if you're I'm just going to throw Anthony Davis out there, right? We all know he's in Dallas. But that's a guy who is a formidable big, a guy who could work out, right? A guy that you think is elite. Now, if you're Dallas, after all the stuff you went through, are you taking Paul George, right? Let's say Giannis, another guy who's making $50-something million, right? If you're the Milwaukee Bucks, are you going to take Paul George? You know what I mean?
Crazy. Yep.
Yeah, and it's all crazy. And the thing about Zion is like, and so the deal is right now you got Zion whose contract is non-guaranteed, right? Are you going to really take on Paul George's thing when you know Zion's money is non-guaranteed and you can just trade him and get off the hook of it? You know what I'm saying? So to me, that's the scary part. Like we look at Zion in the 2000, he didn't play at all during the 2021-22 season. The 2022-23 season, he played 29 games. 2023-24, he played 70. This season, he only played 30 games. So when there's a lot of people saying, yo, Zion's the man, we got to go get him. You're like, he played 11 less games than Paul George. Mm-hmm. Right now, no, granted, he averaged 24.6 points, but we're talking about the team that was the third worst team in the league, right? So to me, I'm a little leery of him. And again, I get it. Highlights, powerful dude, beast mentality. But the lack of availability, you're going to get him and you're going to pair him next to Joel Embiid. You're in the same situation you were in before, in my opinion.
My issue with Zion, too, is that you look at the game that he plays and the conversation circulating, oh, well, maybe he's too big for the way that he plays. He needs to lose some weight. He gets injured. He has stuff nagging. And it reminds me a lot of Joel Embiid. There's times where Joel Embiid needs to lose weight. The doctor's saying he needs to go out there and do that to be able to play at the level he wants to. Can his body keep up with the dominating way that he wants to play? Can those knees keep up? Zion Williamson is very similar, except he's younger in his career, and Joel Embiid has won an MVP. He's had really remarkable games in the NBA already. Clearly hasn't gotten to where the organization wants him to be or where he wants to be from that standpoint. But Zion Williamson, to me, seems like you're stemming in a similar direction to where you were with Joel Embiid. And those two, to me, don't work out next to each other whatsoever, unless this organization in some crazy way surprises us more than we were surprised with Dallas shipping off Luka Doncic. And they're saying, well, no Paul George, let's bring in Zion. Let's have him next to Joel Embiid. Or, maybe we're going away from Joel. That's not going to happen in my book. But it is an interesting point because I think that there's a lot of things out there, Keith, that people are saying, oh, well, get rid of Paul George. We don't want him anymore, this, that, and the other. You also have to look at the reality of the situation and that contract. Who's going to want that? Who's going to want him based on how he played last season? And you still got to get a guy in there that can score and play with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. So there's a lot of factors with just saying get rid of Paul George.
Yeah, the best thing that they need to do is, I hate to say it, like, you got to run this thing back, and that's what they're saying, and see what Paul George has. Hope and pray that he has something. And then if he does, then maybe, the following summer, if you want to get rid of him, try to do it. Or if he has something, like if he's playing really well, then, you consider it like, are we going to keep him? Because right now his stock is low. You're not going to get a lot for him. And unfortunately, like he's making max salary money, right? So typically you want to trade a guy like that for a max player, but you also want to trade him for someone who you're going to have some assurances that he's going to be able to play for you, or he's going to be able to do other things for you. And I just don't see that right now. I don't. And think about this, the way that Nico is getting destroyed by the Dallas media, right? We're talking about the GM for the Dallas Mavs for trading Luka. Could you imagine if he got rid of Anthony Davis for Paul George? Like they're like, yo, we went from stages of the thing being a great team, and we were like, why would you get AD? And now you got AD, and why would you trade him for Paul George when you know Paul George is coming off of a bad season? So I just don't see a lot of options out there for them.
Yeah, unless, there's another crazy trade buzz once again that Dallas does something crazy or other teams do. I am in agreement with you there, Keith. But it is an interesting topic because when people are looking at where should Paul George go, they don't want him anymore. You got to look at a realistic point of view and see what's out there and see what your opportunities are, because they're really not that much better when you look at it in terms of the size of contract, what other teams could want, if other teams even are interested in that too. But there's some other teams with former 76ers that are kind of balling out throughout this NBA playoffs. Once again, we talked about it yesterday. It is weird that the 76ers are not in the playoffs for the first time since 2017. So we're going to highlight some of those players that a lot of fans are saying, get out of Philadelphia, that are now making an impact in the postseason. So we will touch on that and more right here on Locked On 76ers. In the NBA playoffs, while they are in action, FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action as well. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if you win. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. And this is huge because a lot of the time, if you are a first-time bettor and you really want to sports bet and you haven't been doing it for a while, you're getting back into it, you just kind of want to know what's out there and to bet on to make your money's worth. Well, FanDuel gives you that opportunity to really dive deep into what you will be placing your money on. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Make sure you head over to FanDuel.com to go check it out. All right, so the NBA playoffs in action, a game where the series was tied yesterday, 100-94 in favor of the Pistons. Tobias Harris, 15 points in that game. Paul Reed, 6 points as well. Cade Cunningham, of course, went off 33 points and 12 boards. But, Keith, these are two players that were with the Philadelphia 76ers. We touched on Tobias yesterday about how fans wanted him out the door. People liked Paul Reed, but the organization went a different way. And now they are contributing to a team that is trying to pull a first-round upset against the Knicks team that might be falling apart a little bit at the moment.
Yeah, when you look at it, you have to talk about, I think the main thing that Tobias is providing is the leadership aspect, right? You look at it and you're saying to yourself, you know what, this dude is really balling. He's doing what he has to do. But aside from the shooting, aside from the 25 points and the 15 that he scored the other night in game 2, I just feel like there was the thing that stood out to me the most was they did a camera angle, a view of the bench, and you saw Tobias like yelling like to one of his like teammates, giving them instructions like box out, play hard, this and that. And you look at it and you say, you know what? This is a 14-year veteran, which is crazy. Like, this guy is 32 and he's been in the league 14 years. And he's out here, just basically willing the team to do whatever. And at that same time, there's 48 minutes in the NBA game, and he's out here playing 41.5 minutes. You know what I mean? So, I just look at that aspect and you see like he's shooting 55.6% from free. He's just being a leader on the court and off the court. And that's one of those things that basically is going to benefit that team moving forward.
Keith, let me ask you this because it's so interesting here. You look at Tobias Harris, and we saw glimpses of that, never like that all the time, but glimpses of him talking to guys and a little bit of leadership there. Was it just too much in Philadelphia with Tobias, with Joel Embiid, with James Harden at times, in addition to even when he was on a team with Jimmy Butler, and now he's really got a chance to kind of be that vet, be that leader for guys like a Cade Cunningham who's going to have a breakout game, because it didn't really work in Philadelphia, but now you see him with the Pistons having an opportunity to really hype these guys up, get them going. It just seems like there was too many cooks in the kitchen in Philadelphia maybe, and he just really didn't fit in from that standpoint when you looked at it from him trying to get his voice heard, get the leadership out there. In terms of you covering too, were you able to see that a little bit more, or do you see it more in this playoff run, in this atmosphere with this new team?
That's a great question because, when you talk to like a guy like Tyrese Maxey, who loves Tobias, Tobias was one of those guys who basically from day one kind of took him under his wing, right? When you talk to all the younger players on the 76ers, they all talked about how Tobias would take them out to eat. They would have team functions. They would do all this other stuff. He would check up on them. I think that where the difference is that, you come on to a team where you have Joel Embiid is already established. You have Ben Simmons, who is already established. And they weren't exactly the type of guys who wanted to do team function type of things. Like Tobias would organize things, but they didn't always come but I think that when you're in Detroit and you have young stars, right? Like we're talking about Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham, all these guys are young ones, and so they welcome it. These other guys were already established. They weren't like really hanging around teammates. So whenever Tobias would say, "Come on, let's circle the troops," everyone would show up. Not everyone, but the majority of the people would show up. They just didn't show up. So it was like it wasn't him, it was them. If that makes sense to you.
And that's big too, because when you're talking about, and it's so interesting when you bring that up, because you hear this offseason about Paul George, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey are going to try to get some team chemistry, right? They're going to be the ones trying to go out to dinners or get together and be in the different cities and be able to collab from that standpoint. Well, there was other athletes and other players and teammates that were trying to do it all these years. And now all of a sudden it's really in due time. They absolutely need to get this chemistry, because if they don't, next year is really it to figure this out from that standpoint. But I think as an NBA player, and I get it, listen, they're all making millions of dollars. I'm sure there's guys that are out there saying, I just want to go home after practice, after a game, this, that, and the other. But those things do matter. And now the 76ers are the ones that we're hearing saying, oh, well, they're going to have team dinners now, or the three of them are going to get together and try to have some chemistry. And before, some guys didn't want to pitch in, and now, Keith, those guys do want to pitch in to try to make sure that they have that going into next year.
Yeah, I think that's a joke, though, because when you look, no, and I'm going to be real, because if we think about it, what was this season for? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Now it wasn't like they were playing, and I get it. They didn't play, and I get what Paul George is saying, we got to get it together. But, the majority of the players was at every game, home and away, for the most part. Like, there was games late in the season where you didn't see Kelly Oubre. You didn't see Paul George, right? But before that, home and away, all those guys were around doing team functions. Kyle Lowry, all of them. That's where you bond. That's where you develop. Now, again, in the summer, guys do get together. They train together. They do all that other stuff. But basically what they're saying is we want Joel to be with us, because Joel wasn't always there during the regular season. Like when these guys went on these road trips, Joel wasn't there. Like if he didn't have to be there. But the other ones did, because guess what? That's team bonding. So when they say we want everybody to get together to get to know each other, Paul George was there, Tyrese Maxey was there, Kyle Lowry was there, Drummond, Oubre. The one person who wasn't there was Joel. So to me, they're saying what they're saying, but they're saying we got to get Joel on board. So
Which
we'll
is
see if it
crazy.
works.
Yeah, it's just crazy when you think about that, because he's supposed to be the franchise player. And, maybe he's saying, well, I'm going to go home with my wife and my child, and I don't know them anything outside. A job is a job. But even in our field, in any field, you have team bonding events to try to get your team a little bit better that you might be working with. It's not just in basketball, but when you're playing on the court at the same time and you need that chemistry, I do think maybe a dinner with the team or getting together with the team will be able to help you out, especially if your goal is, I want to win an NBA championship. That has to be huge for Joel and me going into this season. We'll see if it happens. We'll see. I'm sure, we'll be talking about it. We'll see if it actually comes together, if there's any post about it or anything in between. But it is interesting. We bring it all the way back to Tobias Harris trying to get the team together and do different things. And still guys trying to do that. And Joel Embiid's a little bit of the outside on looking in as your franchise player. You kind of need that out there. I mean, Keith, to me, as journalists, you have team bonding events. You try to get together to brainstorm and be able to connect and network. I think that's important really in any job field in my mind.
Yeah, I would agree. It is. You got to get together and you got to get to know each other. But, this team had a whole year, or not, a whole basketball season to do it. And the fact that they still need to work on that is, some people may say, a day late and a dollar short.
Just a little bit concerning there for the 76ers as well. But we'll continue here on Locked On 76ers in just a moment, right after these messages. We are back here on Locked On 76ers. So we were talking before about some players, former Sixers, that have been able to make a big impact in the playoffs. Before we send things off, another player that I really liked watching last night against the Clippers and Nuggets was Nico Batum. And I know that he didn't have a crazy performance. He only had 6 points in addition to 4 rebounds, but he hit some really big threes at a time that was needed when Kawhi Leonard was out, and there was a little bit of back and forth in that game with Jamal Murray, in addition to the Clippers as well. He's another player, Keith, that I thought at times really fit in well with the 76ers, and somebody else that is trying to just be that role player and be that impact player on a team that's trying to take off the Nuggets in round one.
I mean, yeah, you said at times. I felt like he fit in perfectly from day one. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, here's the deal. Nico was the one that got away. Like, he was the one who they didn't want to get away, but he ended up being the one that got away. Because what I mean by that is, like, they knew that they wanted to bring Kelly Oubre back. They knew that Kyle Lowry was coming back, but they really wanted to bring Nico back. And Nico said, nah, bruh, I love y'all, but I got to go back to Cali. Like, my wife and my family's living there. My kids are going to this school where they speak French is the first language at the school. We're from France. I need that for my kids, the whole nine. And, so think about this. If they had Nico Batum, then they wouldn't have had to get Yabusele, which it worked out well for them. Right. But at the same time, they wouldn't have to give KJ Martin that money with the hope of trading them, right? So Nico kind of messed up the flow a little bit from a roster building standpoint because he was the guy. And you're right. You see him get 6 points. But it's the things that he does to make everyone else on the floor better. And he's the type of guy that you could fit in there perfectly to play alongside superstars because he's not going to demand the ball. He's going to defend. He's going to do nice outlet passes. He's going to do a lot of things that helps a team impact and help in a lot of things that impact winning that does not show up on box scores.
And it's important for us, too, from an analyst standpoint, to kind of look at these games outside of the 76ers because they're not in the playoffs and say, okay, you look at somebody like Batum, who is playing aside Kawhi Leonard, who had 39 points last night, and James Harden, who had 18 points in the win over the Nuggets. And you kind of look at the 76ers roster and you say, this is why when we talked about these free agents and players to bring back and players to look at to elevate your team, it is important that you find somebody like Nico Batum that's a role player that can go out there and make a positive impact when you're in the playoffs and win or go home series. That is what makes the difference on some of these teams and other. Yes, your star players are supposed to be healthy. It's supposed to have really big games in the postseason, right? But in addition, it's also those other role players that step up and make that difference and come in and make an immediate impact. So, a few weeks ago, we had that whole free agency episode and talking about guys that should come back and have an impact with the 76ers. That's not just important for the regular season roster. It's important to build that chemistry with those guys. In addition, because you never know how much you will need them later down the line for somebody to come in, make an impact, and being able to lift the team when it needs it. Because Batum was able to do that in moments last night. And the 76ers, they got 3 stars, but they're also going to need other guys. So those role players are equally just as important kind of to look at. Keith, clearly it's the health of Joel Embiid and Paul George at the mark, at the top of everybody's thoughts, but it's also those guys behind them that you look at that can make a difference if the 76ers are healthy enough to make a run last year.
True.
Or next year.
Yeah, you're right. But I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Gordon. Can you bring him back?
I like Eric Gordon. To me, you don't bring him back. I think when you look at other players with the 76ers, you look at who you want to draft, right? You look at Quentin Grimes, even Lonnie Walker. I think that you need to go a little bit younger on that roster. And I know that he can come in. He is kind of like a Nico in the sense he can come in and put up a shot and knock it down. I just don't see him fitting in Philadelphia. And I know it's a little bit of contradicting myself there because I just said you need a role player that comes in and does that. But I do like Lonnie Walker. I do like Quentin Grimes. And there's some other pieces that I would probably put over EG, Justin Edwards as well. You bring in this draft pick to hopefully make an immediate impact. So that's my take on Eric Gordon. What is your take? Because I know you do like what he was able to do last year with the 76ers when he's healthy.
I'm torn because here's the thing. When we look at him, so Eric Gordon played 39 games. That was like right. the fourth fewest of his career. Eric Gordon's 36 years old, right?
Right.
He had career low averages of 6.8 points in 19.7 minutes. However, his 40.9% three-point shooting was the 3rd highest of his career, right? So, but we're talking about that. Wasn't playing as many minutes. Now, here's the deal, the thing that really stands out. He was shooting 52.6% on three-pointers during a 17-game stretch before the season was derailed due to injury, right? So at that particular time, he was on top of his game. Now, I get it. You got Quentin Grimes. You have Lonnie Walker. And if we're going to be real, Eric Gordon was out of the rotation until Jared McCain got injured. So you got Jared McCain coming back, right?
Yeah, that's true. I didn't mention that, yeah.
The question is, though, they don't have anyone on this roster, and all these dudes are good shooters, but they don't have anyone who can shoot to the clip that he can. So to me, I know it's tough, but I think I might keep him just because you never know when you're going to need him. Because as good as the rest of them are, they can't shoot the way he shoots. I mean, the dude was shooting at 52.6% in the 17 games before he got hurt. So I'm just looking at it like, I don't know how he would deal with it. You just being a guy, you say, okay, EG, we need you to space the floor for like every 4th game or something like that, right?
Right.
But if he can deal with it, why not? I mean, why not? Like, but I mean, I don't know if I would have Jared Butler, but I may have him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm definitely a no on, I'm a no on Jared Butler. So I'm with you on that one. It's a good argument because, you know, you look at it and you even look in Sixers history, right? Now, JJ Redick was clearly more of a starter, but even somebody like Danny Green, who could shoot at a high clip and go back and play defense, clearly wasn't at the top of his game when he was with the Sixers, but could still come in and shoot. I would still venture towards no with Eric Gordon. I like Eric Gordon, but I just think with this team, you need to get a little bit younger. You need to bring in those guys up. And maybe you look at the draft in terms of where you fall and try to get a sharpshooter coming out of the draft. I'm still no on EG, but I'm curious, but let us know what you guys think in the comments, because you place a really good argument there that when you're looking at the playoffs and you're looking at the postseason, who can come in and knock down a shot when you need it? Maybe like a Nico Batum, come in, score 6 points. Okay, good. We don't need you for the rest of the game. So it's a good argument there. I'm still going to go no. Let us know, though, what you guys think in the comments as well. The 76ers, although they are not in the postseason, you can still, of course, follow along with us here on Locked On 76ers, because there's a lot of postseason in terms of out of the season talk for the Philadelphia 76ers. And you can win by subscribing to our free daily newsletter up until April 30th. A $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your sports cave, a $300 Game Time gift card, and $200 Fanatics gift card. Get exclusive insights into free agency, draft coverage, and team updates delivered straight to your inbox. Join the Locked On 76ers podcast for trusted coverage every single day. Subscribe to enter today, so make sure you go check it out. Well, thank you guys all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you guys next time.